I heard it and froze mid-laugh at my best friend's engagement party. "Stop introducing me as your future husband," he said, his tone sharp and measured. "It makes me look like I'm settling." The words landed heavier than a champagne bottle tipping over. My name is Sophie Carter, and until that moment, I thought my fiancé, Ethan Wallace, loved me. We'd been together for 4 years, college sweethearts, partners in crime, confidants, the kind of couple people envied. Or so I thought. Ethan was charming, ambitious, and stunningly handsome. Everyone admired him, and I had loved him fiercely, sometimes too fiercely, maybe blindly. I introduced him everywhere as my fiancé, to my family, my friends, my coworkers. I even posted a few joyful photos on social media, captions brimming with pride. But that night, standing in the golden glow of the party lights, watching him turn sharply away from me, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't proud of me. Not in public. Not where it counted. I swallowed the sudden lump in my throat, forcing a laugh. "Ethan, come on. It's just my friends." He didn't look at me. He scanned the crowd instead, smirking politely at someone else, and said, "It doesn't matter. Just stop. Keep it private. I don't want people thinking I settled for you." A polite clink of glasses, laughter, and the music in the background masked the sting, but inside, everything had shifted. I tried to brush it off, tell myself he was tired, stressed, maybe joking, but the words echoed in my mind, settling. I remembered all the times he subtly criticized my choices, my wardrobe, my job, even the way I decorated my apartment. Always in whispers, always careful not to make it obvious. At the time, I laughed it off, called it playful teasing. Now, it felt like a warning. I smiled at the guests, keeping my panic hidden, but my fingers twisted the edge of my dress. My stomach churned with suspicion. Was this just a bad night, or had I been blind for years? The idea that the man I trusted could see me as second-rate, or worse, a convenience, sent a quiet shiver down my spine. I forced myself to stay, to smile, to sip my champagne, but the seed of doubt had been planted. And as Ethan laughed and posed for pictures with everyone else, everyone except me, I realized, the engagement I had celebrated in private might not be what it seemed. Someone who could say something like that, might be capable of far worse. And for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of fear, and a spark of something darker. The days after the party were quieter than usual, but not peaceful. Ethan acted normal, charming, attentive, even sweet at times, but I couldn't shake the words he'd said. Settling. Every compliment felt measured. Every smile had an edge. The first red flag came when we went shopping for our wedding registry. "Do you really want these?" he asked, holding up a vase I had picked weeks ago. "It's nice, but it doesn't match our aesthetic." I blinked. Our aesthetic? Yes, you know, what people will actually notice. We don't want the registry looking cheap or predictable. His gaze swept the room as if he were evaluating not just the vase, but me. I forced a smile, but inside, my chest tightened. Then there were the phone calls. He'd step out of the room, phone pressed to his ear, speaking quietly, sometimes in laughter that didn't reach his eyes. I tried asking who he was talking to, friends, work? He always shrugged, annoyed. Just work stuff. Nothing you need to worry about. I tried to trust him. I wanted to trust him. But a subtle unease crept in whenever I saw him texting quickly, turning the screen away from me. Money became another quiet battlefield. Ethan insisted we split expenses unevenly. He claimed it was practical, citing investments, savings plans, his career, my flexible income. I didn't mind at first, I thought it was fairness. But then I noticed little things, expensive dinners he insisted I cover my share of, last-minute purchases for himself labeled as necessities, and promises he made about the wedding budget that never materialized. The smallest things felt off too, like he began to prefer talking to other friends about our plans, ignoring my input in front of others. Subtle comments about my job, my choices, the way I styled my hair, all delivered as helpful advice. One evening, he invited his cousin over to discuss table settings. I tried to give my opinion. He cut me off gently but firmly, saying, "I think I should handle this part, Sophie. You'd probably just overcomplicate it." I laughed, but inside, a sharp pang of doubt pierced me. Late that night, I sat in the living room, tracing the rim of my wine glass. My heart felt heavy, a mix of sadness and growing suspicion. Am I imagining things? Am I overreacting? Every time I brought up feelings, he brushed them off. Every time I questioned his words, he smiled and reassured me, but the words never matched the actions. And the thought I couldn't shake? If he could dismiss me publicly as settling, what else was he capable of when he thought no one was watching? For the first time in years, the man I loved felt unpredictable. And I couldn't stop wondering if my life was quietly being rewritten without my consent. It hit me like a punch I never saw coming. I had trusted Ethan with everything, my heart, my time, my plans for a future together. And yet, the evidence of his betrayal had been quietly piling up, hidden in plain sight. I discovered it the day I went to pick up a package he had forgotten at home. His laptop was open on the kitchen counter, left unlocked for the first time in months. Curiosity overrode caution. I glanced at the screen and froze. There it was, a series of private messages with someone named Lila Grant, a photographer and influencer he had recently started working with. At first, it seemed harmless: project updates, brainstorming captions, editing schedules. Then the tone shifted. "Lila, can't wait to see you tonight. Alone. Ethan, me too. This is our little secret." Every word, every message, every sly wink emoji carved into my chest like a knife. I scrolled further and found hidden tabs, shared calendars labeled secret shoots and late-night meetings, all times when he claimed he was working late. Even our wedding planning notes had been altered subtly, his excuses always convenient, his presence increasingly scarce. I sat down hard, my hands trembling. The disbelief was first, my mind refusing to comprehend that the man I loved had been lying, scheming, and cheating right under my nose. The heartbreak followed immediately, a cold, heavy weight pressing against my chest. I thought about the parties, the dinners, the quiet evenings we shared. Were they real? Or just performances staged for someone else's benefit? Then came the rage. Not the fleeting, emotional kind, but the sharp, calculating anger of someone who has been underestimated for far too long. He hadn't just cheated. He had planned a life without me, a future where I was erased, replaced by someone who fit his aesthetic perfectly, someone he could showcase publicly while keeping me sidelined privately. The betrayal was total. He had weaponized his charm, his social influence, and my trust. I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding, vision blurring. The air in the apartment felt heavy, suffocating. I felt hollowed out, yet, in that emptiness, a strange clarity began to form. He believed he could continue his life as if nothing had happened. He believed I would quietly accept being cast aside. He had no idea that his actions had planted the seed of something far more dangerous: revenge. I stood, fists clenched, voice low but steady. "You think you can erase me?" I whispered to the empty room. "You think I'll stay silent? You're about to find out exactly how wrong you are." And in that moment, the heartbreak and disbelief transformed into resolve. Ethan hadn't just broken my trust. He had awakened a force he would regret ever underestimating. The countdown to exposing the truth had begun. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past few months. The laughter we shared, the quiet evenings, the dreams we had whispered to each other, all now tinged with the bitter aftertaste of deceit. The realization settled in slowly, Like ice creeping over my skin, Ethan had never really seen me as his equal, his partner, or even someone worthy of being proud of publicly. For years, I had blurred the line between love and compromise. I had forgiven small dismissals, brushed off subtle criticisms, and ignored the gut feeling that sometimes he didn't value me the way he should. I had let him dictate how I should behave, how I should look, and how I should exist beside him. But now, I felt something shift. I remembered my mother's voice from years ago: "Never let anyone write your story for you, Sophie. Not even the ones you love." It hit me like a lightning bolt. I had been cast as a background character in the very life I thought we were building together. And the truth was simple: if I wanted to reclaim my story, my pride, my dignity, I couldn't wait for Ethan to change. I had to act. The transformation was subtle at first. I started keeping meticulous notes, screenshots of his secret messages, timestamps of his late-night calls, evidence of the ways he subtly erased me from social media and our shared circles. Every innocent remark, every slight, every hidden action became a piece of a puzzle. Then came the trigger moment. He leaned over my shoulder one night, brushing past me with that confident, entitled smirk. "Don't worry about tomorrow's dinner plans," he said. "I've got it all handled." Something inside me snapped. I realized that his sense of control, his smug certainty that he could erase me quietly, was the very thing I could turn against him. The man who thought he had power over my life had no idea that I was about to reclaim it, carefully, strategically, and deliberately. I took a deep breath, feeling the anger sharpen into clarity. Hurt had been temporary, determination was permanent. I would not just survive this betrayal, I would rise above it. I would make him face the consequences of his arrogance. From that moment on, I stopped being the passive, hurt fiancé. I became a strategist, a planner, and a quiet storm gathering strength. Every smile I gave him, every word of reassurance, was a calculated move in a larger game he didn't even know existed. Ethan had thought he was erasing me from his life. But in truth, he had just awakened me. And I would make sure he never underestimated me again. I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry in front of him again. That was the first mistake Ethan expected me to make. Instead, I became observant. Step 1 was silence. I stopped correcting him when he introduced himself without mentioning me. I stopped flinching when he said my place instead of our home. I smiled when he subtly stepped away from me at social events. The more invisible I became, the more comfortable he grew. And comfortable people get careless. Step 2 was evidence. I screenshotted everything: messages with Lila, calendar invites, deleted comments, archived photos he thought were gone forever. I saved voice notes where he joked with friends about keeping Sophie low-key until things are settled. I documented dates, times, patterns. Not emotions. Facts. Facts don't lie. Step 3 was the illusion of control. I let Ethan believe he was winning. I complimented his choices. I asked his opinion more than usual. I even apologized once, watched his posture straighten when he thought he'd broken me. That apology bought me access. Passwords. Shared drives. Wedding documents. Emails with vendors where he subtly rewrote our story as his milestone, not ours. I learned something critical: perception mattered more to him than morality. So I decided to use that. Step 4 was the setup. Ethan insisted on hosting a pre-wedding networking dinner: friends, colleagues, people who matter. He wanted to look desirable, successful, unburdened. I suggested something better. What if we made it an engagement celebration? I said casually. You know, formal, meaningful. It'll help people take us seriously. He hesitated. Then nodded. As long as it's tasteful. Tasteful. I contacted the photographer. The venue. The friends he respected most. I even invited Lila, under the guise of supporting Ethan's work. She accepted enthusiastically. Perfect. Step 5 was timing. I waited. I watched. I listened. Ethan started planning his exit quietly, talking about postponing the wedding, reconsidering priorities, setting himself up to walk away clean while keeping his reputation intact. He had no idea every move he made tightened the trap. The night before the dinner, he kissed my forehead and said, "You've been really understanding lately." I smiled. I've learned a lot. He slept peacefully, believing I was still the woman desperate to be chosen. What he didn't know was this: he wasn't about to choose. He was about to be exposed. Because the man who said being my future husband made him look like he was settling? Was about to learn what it really feels like to lose everything he thought made him superior, in front of everyone who mattered. The engagement dinner started like any other, lights dimmed, soft music playing, guests mingling with polite smiles. Ethan was in his element, charming, confident, leaning into the role of the successful, unattached bachelor. Everyone thought they were celebrating us. Everyone except him knew the truth. As he stepped onto the small stage to give a toast, I pressed a discreet button on my phone. The photographer, who had been briefed carefully, switched the live feed for the presentation I had prepared. Screenshots, messages, deleted emails, and carefully annotated evidence of his manipulations appeared on the large projector behind him. Ethan froze. He tried to laugh it off, raising his glass, but the room fell silent. Every guest's gaze shifted from him to the screen, where evidence of his betrayal, private DMs with Lila, emails rewriting our wedding plans without me, comments showing he deliberately downplayed our engagement, played out for everyone to see. Surprised? I said, stepping onto the stage. My voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut through the tension. This is Ethan Wallace, the man who believed he could erase me, his fiancé, from his life and his story, while maintaining a perfect public image. Gasps filled the room. Ethan's face drained of color. His charming composure crumbled as whispers spread. I trusted him, I continued, and he treated me like a placeholder. Someone to be hidden. Someone to be replaced when convenient. But trust, once broken, demands accountability. Angela, my lawyer, had prepped a few final statements for witnesses and digital evidence. Emails, contracts with vendors, screenshots, all presented with meticulous clarity. The attendees could see the cold calculation Ethan had used to keep me invisible while pursuing someone else. Ethan stammered, words failing him. His closest friends avoided eye contact. The social media influencers he admired most exchanged shocked glances, realizing he had manipulated not just me, but perception itself. Everything you've built, I said softly, is built on lies. By the end of the night, Ethan's reputation was shattered. Brands withdrew sponsorships, social media accounts flooded with comments exposing his duplicity, and the curated image he had carefully constructed collapsed under the weight of truth. He tried to explain, to justify, to charm, but nobody listened. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from betrayal, from manipulation, from the constant pressure of being unseen. The man who had called me settling had learned, publicly and irrevocably, that his arrogance had consequences. As I left the stage, the room buzzing with whispers, I realized that justice had a name. And tonight, it was mine. Ethan had tried to erase me, but the world had just rewritten the story, and he was the one who ended up deleted. The morning after the engagement dinner, everything felt different. Ethan didn't call. He didn't text. The man who had once dictated how I should be seen, who had whispered that introducing me as his fiancé made him look like he was settling, was silent. Social media was ablaze. Clips from the dinner had gone viral, showing the truth behind the charming, curated exterior. Comments poured in with shock, support, outrage. Brands that had once courted him publicly rescinded offers. Invitations to events vanished. In one night, the empire he had built on manipulation collapsed entirely. As for me, I woke up to a sense of relief I hadn't felt in years. The betrayal that had weighed me down had turned into fuel, proof that I was stronger than anyone who tried to erase me. Friends and family reached out, apologizing for missing the signs, for not noticing how he treated me. But there was no bitterness in my replies, only calm certainty. I had reclaimed my voice, my story, and my dignity. I updated my own social media, not to boast, but to share my truth. Every photo, every post, every memory was mine again, unapologetic and unfiltered. People responded not just with likes and comments, but with stories of their own struggles, their own betrayals, their own triumphs. I realized that sometimes, being underestimated is a gift. Ethan had believed he was untouchable. He had assumed I would bend, stay silent, and allow him to craft the narrative. But underestimating me only ensured he would be exposed in the most public way possible. I smiled, sipping my morning coffee by the window. Sunlight spilled across the table, illuminating the space that had once felt heavy with tension. The man who tried to erase me had been deleted from my life, but I remained, unshaken and radiant. And here's the truth I want to leave with you, the viewers watching this story unfold. Have you ever trusted someone who quietly rewrote your story without your consent? Have you ever felt invisible while someone else curated your life for their own benefit? Share your experiences in the comments. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And if you want more tales of betrayal, empowerment, and poetic justice, subscribe and join the community where truth always comes first. Because sometimes, the people who try to make you feel small are the ones who end up exposed, while you rise, unfiltered, unstoppable, and unforgettable. He tried to erase me from his life, but in doing so, he wrote his own downfall. And sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is simply refusing to be erased.